Hello everyone, this is me Monali and I welcome you all to today's lesson with a very big heart. This lesson is all about the text and in-text questions of the chapter Tissues. So let's begin with the in-text questions first. The very first question is, what is a tissue? We can have answer like this. Tissue is a group of related cells that have a common origin and perform a common function. Next question is, what is the utility of tissues in multicellular organisms? Children, in unicellular organisms, actually the single cell performs all the basic functions such as respiration, excretion, digestion, etc. But in multicellular organisms, cells are grouped to form tissues. These tissues are specialized to carry out a particular function at definite place in the body. For example, muscle cells group to form muscular tissues which contract and relax to help in movement. Nerve cells are quite long and they form nervous tissues which helps in transmission of messages, etc. This is known as division of labor in multicellular organisms. It is because of this division of labor that multicellular organisms are able to perform all functions efficiently. Another question asks to name the type of simple tissues present in plants. Children, simple permanent tissues are of three types: parenchyma, collenchyma, and sclerenchyma. Further, parenchyma can be divided into two types: erenchyma and chlorenchyma. Where is apical meristem found? Now, by this time, you all know that apical meristem is found at the growing tips of stems and roots of the plant. Another question here is, which tissue makes up the husk of coconut? The husk of coconut is made of sclerenchyma tissue. Next question is, what are the constituents of phloem? Phloem is the food conducting tissue, as we all know, and it is made up of the following constituents: sieve tubes, companion cells, phloem parenchyma, and phloem fibers. Next in-text question is, name the tissue responsible for movement in our body. So children, the answer is quite clear. The muscular tissue is responsible for movement in our body. Very important question is, what does a neuron look like? A neuron consists of three main parts. The first important part is cell body or cyton. It has a well-defined nucleus surrounded by granular cytoplasm. It also has all the cell organelles except centrosome, because we all know that the neuron doesn't divide. Next important part is dendrites. These are branched cytoplasmic projections of the cell body. Another very important integral part of a neuron is axon. It is a long thread-like extension of the cell body. The end portions of the axon have swollen ends like bulbs which store neurotransmitters. Next question is asking for three features of cardiac muscles. We can write answer like this. Three important features of cardiac muscles are: the cells of cardiac muscles are small, cylindrical, uninucleated and branched. Cardiac muscles are involuntary in nature. They show rhythmic contraction and relaxation throughout the life. Another question is, what are the functions of areolar tissue? We can write like this. The main functions of areolar tissue are: it fills up the space inside the organs and supports the internal organs. It helps in repairing the tissues of skin and muscles. Now it's the turn of text questions. So the very first question is, define the term tissue. We are not going to discuss it again. You can write this answer directly from the in-text part. Let's take up another question. How many types of elements together make up the xylem tissue? Name them. So, as you all know, 4 different elements together make up the xylem tissue, and these are tracheids, vessels, xylem parenchyma and xylem fibers. Another question here is, how are simple tissues different from complex tissues in plants? So we can have answer in tabular form. You can start answer like this: simple tissues are different from complex tissues in the following ways. Simple tissues, they consist of only one type of cells. Permanent tissues, they are made up of more than one type of cells. Second point of difference is, the cells in simple tissues are similar in structure and perform similar functions, whereas different types of cells in permanent tissues perform different functions. Simple tissues form primary structure of the plant, whereas permanent tissues are mainly for transport system. The 3 types of tissues, simple tissues in plants are parenchyma, collenchyma and sclerenchyma. Whereas we have 2 types of complex tissues, and these are xylem and phloem. So like this you can write your answer in tabular form. Next question is to differentiate between parenchyma, collenchyma and sclerenchyma on the basis of their cell wall. So again children, we are going to write on the basis of the cell wall. These tissues can be differentiated as follows. We have answer in tabular form again. The first point you can write, for parenchyma, that cell wall is relatively thin. Collenchyma, cell wall is irregularly thick, and we all know that the thickness is present at the corners. Whereas in sclerenchyma, cell wall is uniformly thickened. It is extremely thick cell wall. Another point of difference is the composition. In parenchyma, the cell wall is made up of cellulose. In collenchyma, pectin and hemicellulose are the major components of cell wall. We call it as pectocellulose. Whereas in sclerenchyma, an additional layer composed of lignin is present on the cell wall. Next question is about the functions of the stomata. So stomata perform the following functions. First point, they help the plants in exchange of gases, that is carbon dioxide and oxygen, with the atmosphere. They also help plant to get rid of excess water in the form of water vapor by the process called as transpiration. Transpiration process is very, very important because it both keeps the plant cool, creates a cooling effect, as well as it creates a transpirational pool responsible for upward movement of water and minerals. Another question is the diagram based question, where you need to show difference between the 3 types of muscle fibers. So you can have answer in the form of diagrams itself. Let's move to next question. What is the specific function of cardiac muscles? The very specific function of cardiac muscle is that they contract and relax rapidly, rhythmically, and tirelessly throughout the life. Next question. Differentiate between striated, unstriated, and cardiac muscles on the basis of their structure and location in the body. So very easily we can frame a table for this answer. So let's start with the structure. In case of striated muscle, cells are long, cylindrical, unbranched, and multinucleated with striations. You must remember striations, these are light and dark bands. In unstriated muscle, cells are spindle-shaped, unbranched, uninucleated without any striations. Whereas in cardiac muscle, cells are small, cylindrical, branched, and uninucleated with faint striations as compared to the striated muscles. Let's see difference in terms of location. So striated muscles are actually called as skeletal muscles because they remain attached to the skeleton. We can have this muscle in hands, in the legs, etc. Unstriated muscles are present in the stomach wall, ureter, intestine, respiratory tract, etc. Cardiac muscles are solely present in the walls of the heart. Another question is again diagram based question. Here you need to show the diagram of a neuron. We can have diagram like this. Now is the turn of the one word question. Name the following tissue that forms the inner lining of our mouth. Yes, the answer is squamous epithelial tissue. Identify the tissue that connects muscle to bone in humans. Answer is tendon. Tissue that transports food in plants. Answer will be phloem. Tissue that stores fat in our body. Answer is adipose tissue. Connective tissue with a fluid matrix. Of course, answer is blood. Tissue present in the brain. Nervous tissue, we all know that the entire nervous system is made up of nervous tissue itself. Another question is again to identify the type of tissue in the parts mentioned below. Number one is skin. So answer will be stratified squamous epithelial tissue. Bark of tree. Answer is cork, which is a kind of protective tissue. Bone. Bone is a kind of connective tissue. Lining of kidney tubules. Cuboidal epithelial tissue. Vascular bundles. Complex permanent tissue. You all know these are xylem and phloem. Next question is name the regions in which parenchyma tissue is present. We all know that parenchyma tissue is present in the soft parts of the plant such as cortex of roots and stems, mesophyll cells of leaves, pith of fruits, etc. What is the role of epidermis in plants? Let's see answer. Epidermis is a protective tissue of the plant which forms the outer covering of the entire plant body, including stem, roots, leaves, flowers, and remain in direct contact with the environment. Epidermis helps in absorption, secretion, gaseous exchange, and transpiration. It also helps in preventing the entry of pathogens. Another question is, how does the cork act as a protective tissue? We all know that cork is made up of dead cells. The cell walls of cork cells are coated with suberin. Therefore, it protects the plants against mechanical injury and temperature extremes. It also prevents loss of water by evaporation. Now, the very last question is to complete the following table. So, you can complete it as it is given here. This brings us to the end of this lesson. Lots of love. See you soon in next video. Bye-bye.